So, Console Truth made a response to me, so I decided to make one back to him. Like most people that are older than me, he automatically assumes I'm not a naive kid who never ever experienced the Super Nintendo. But what he underestimates is that I'm a poor Mexican. So, my family couldn't afford an N64 and PlayStation right off the bat. Ta da! My family didn't let me buy my own video game console till 1998, 1999, somewhere around there, whenever the first Star Wars movie came out, because Pod Racer was my first game. And I played a lot of Super Nintendo games with my uncle because my uncle had the Super Nintendo that he bought so I could play with them. And I played a lot of Super Nintendo games. My first game I ever played was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Turtles in Time. Played Super Tennis, shit like Sidekicks. I forgot the hell, Tony something. The original Mario's, Real Monsters, Star Fox, Super Mario World, one of the best games ever. Yeah, I played the 16-bit era. And I find it funny that you mention like all these online services which you obviously really never had access to. I bet you never even used SegaNet. You're one of those people who goes on Wikipedia, finds out this information, and uses it towards people. Just like I used to do in old ass arguments back in the day. You see, you didn't have a Super Famicom because you lived in America, so you didn't even have the access to download the I don't even know if you call it a demo for Legend of Zelda. And I love how you say that games are more expensive now. Are you on fucking crack? Like seriously? Because of the disc format alone, in comparison to the cartridge format, games get cheaper like that. So sure, they start off at $60, but in 2 months they're 30. And not only that, but you're ignoring the huge libraries of Xbox Live Arcade and PlayStation Network games. But of course, you're probably one of those people who don't think they're real games simply because they're not printed on a disc and have a two-page manual. That's what it really makes a game. Yeah. And you're probably also one of those people who ignores platforms like Steam or iOS or any of the other hundreds of different platforms now with games for like dollars. You can literally like throw $1 for a game just like Final Fantasy VI that you were praising. It's called Cthulhu Saves the World. It's on Xbox Live Indie Games. It's $1 and it's almost as long, and it's a really expansive, in-depth retro style RPG for $1 on the Xbox Live Arcade. But we'll ignore all that because you just don't want to face the fact that there was also terrible things about your generation. How about mentioning that Final Fantasy game costed $120? And how about, you're saying bullshit that these cartridges were $40. They were $50, $60, sometimes even 70. And when it got into the N64 era, they were all like $70. I envied PlayStation users because they had much cheaper games. And it's just a little ridiculous that you just keep saying that my age is a factor. Dude, first off, yeah, the 360 did come out when I was like 14, but that doesn't make it nostalgic. I don't remember if you remember being 13, 14, 15 years old, but those are like your teenage angst years when you hate everything and you're just like transferring through middle school. Like those were not good years. And you're like pumping them up to be amazing years. Like it's your first year of high school and that awkward year of 8th grade. Man, what a wonderful time. Nah, shit I'm nostalgic about is like Mario Tennis. And, I remember hating this game because it was a broken piece of shit on the Nintendo 64. I remember my mother beating me at Pac-Man on fucking Nintendo 64 back in the day. I remember playing Star Fox. I mean, Star Fox 64 was around here, but I remember playing Turok, with my friends and getting all the damn controllers and shit. I remember Jet Force Gemini, one of my first not PlayStation, god damn it, 64 games, Pokemon Snap. I was a Nintendo kiddie, alright? I played Super Nintendo. I played the Nintendo 64. I didn't get the PS1 until halfway. I got the PS1 around the same time I had the GameCube. That's when I started playing that. Um, and the GameCube had fond eras for me too. But when I was in high school, like early days of high school and middle school, those are not great years. No, don't give a shit about those years at all. That's not nostalgia for me at all. Nostalgia usually like most people that remember things when they were kids, it's around the 10, like the early years, like 12, 11, 10 years old. Pokemon Gold was coming out, Pokemon Silver, the original Pokemon Red and Blue, the Game Boy Color, the fucking Game Boy Pocket. Like, those are the eras that I remember as a kid being just brilliant and blindly amazing. And when all in reality, if I play the games now, they're not that amazing, and it would ruin it for me if I actually went back and tried to play them. Tried to play through Turok 2 the other day. Not a good experience. And, playing some of these games, like the original Star Fox, I remember this game being amazing. It sucks ass. It's just not good with that D-pad. And you gotta just get your head out of your ass. You're like overlooking some of these things. Like, the Sega CD was horrible. The fucking 32X was horrible. You had these two big add-ons to the fucking Sega Genesis and had 3 different power cables. Are you fucking me? Not to mention that all those Street Fighter games you were mentioning, did you forget that they used to come out just like they do now? Or Capcom was just as whorish back then as they are now and release a game every fucking year? Turbo Edition, Hyper Edition, all that shit. And charge you 50, 60 bucks, $80 for a cartridge every year, just like they do now? Did you forget that? Did you forget, like, half the accessories and shit being broken? Did you forget the shovelware on there? There was shovelware there then, too. Oh, and then you made some big fuss about patches being bad. Oh, one of the main reasons I still play Halo Reach is because of patches, because they actually, update playlists. They actually, listen to the community feedback and rearrange maps and modify weapons and all that shit. But, patches are evil. And then day one DLC, oh no. Never mind the fact that, you could buy games for the whole prices of those DLCs and, not buy them. But people ignore that fact too. You see, this is why I have a lot of problem with older gamers looking at this gen, because they look at it so black and white without actually looking at the generation as a whole and actually looking at all the different platforms and actually looking at all the different innovations. They focus on the tiniest little things that are barely inconveniences. I would rather pay for day one DLC than a $70 3-hour Sonic game just to get updated in a couple months with a whole new Sonic game attached to it. Remember Sonic 3 and Knuckles? Remember, you had Sonic 3 and Knuckles, and then you just had all that stupid shit where they would just update a game and then recharge you full price for it. But, whatever. You don't like patches or DLC, which make games phenomenally cheaper. You see, I was alive during those eras, and I find it funny when a lot of older folks patronize me for saying, "Oh, Samuel, you just weren't there, man. You just weren't there." I was there for the most part. I was a poor Mexican, so I just got leftover games from fucking video stores that were closing, and GameStop barely opened and was turning in Super Nintendo games and stuff. And, that's just how it was back then. You just got by with whatever cheap-ass games you could get. And now it's easier than ever to get cheap games. I mean, Ubisoft games dropped to $40 in the first week. But, of course, you think games are more expensive now because you just look at the MSRP wholesale price at the beginning and then judge it purely on that, on a disc, when there's so many different alternatives and so many different games. I can get fucking 40 games for $40 on my fucking phone. I could play full-fledged games on my phone. Fucking Grand Theft Auto 3, Max Payne on my phone. And, I can even get Max Payne on the Xbox for $5. $10, I think it is normally, but I got it for $5. There's just so much evolution in this gaming generation. I could play all those best games. I can get the the Genesis collection, Sonic Genesis collection, or whatever the hell you call it. Get that for $30 on the Xbox 360 and get like 80 games. I can get all the best games and I own them. I have Sonic CD on my 360 right now. I have just I have a ton of Neo Geo games. I have all these games from that era on a console now. They just released Super Street Fighter for the Wii, I think, and it even has online play. So, you got to get your head out of your ass, man. I mean, are you honestly telling me that if I went back to 1995 or whenever the hell you were playing games, if I showed you the capabilities of the 360 and showed you the games for the 360, would you honestly choose the Super Nintendo or Sega Genesis? The answer is probably no. And if you say yes, that's purely out of nostalgia. You see, the generation as being better, but if you actually stack up the amount of games and how much cheaper the games are now, and what kinds of games were out, this generation is just so much better than all the other ones. And I think the next generation's even going to be better. With better technology comes easier, quicker ways to access games. And most likely, the digital games on our Xboxes and PlayStations are going to be transferable to our new Xboxes and PlayStations. So all the money that we spent on these consoles won't be wasted when the next one comes out. That's what's going to make next gen probably even more amazing. And with DVDs being so easy to emulate and the 360 being such a weak console right now, and when the new console comes out it'll be easier to emulate it. It'll be so much easier to have backwards compatibility. But people ignore these facts. Like they always will, because they're stuck in the past.